Welcome to another episode of Gaming Origins. On the last episode we looked at Jak and Daxter. Today we're looking at another famous duo's origins and history, this time Ratchet and Clank, one of PlayStation's oldest and most loved series with many games under its belt. Ratchet and Clank is a creation behind the team at Insomniac Games, which was founded by Ted Price in 1994. Despite producing predominantly PlayStation games over the many years, they are entirely independent. You may know Insomniac Games for such well-known series such as the original Spyro trilogy on the PlayStation and the Resistance games on the PS3. Insomniac Games wasn't always independent. Owned by Universal Entertainment, however, after Spyro Year of the Dragon was released in the year 2000, the deal with Universal was finished, and they chose to remain independent, dealing with Sony themselves leaving the Spyro series with Universal. This left Insomniac to create a new IP for the new Sony console, the PS2, which would later turn into the long-running, still to today, Ratchet and Clank series. However, the original project wasn't the one we all know and loved. Dubbed A Girl with a Stick, which as the name suggests is about, well, a girl with a stick, in what appears to have been an action platformer type game. 6 months into development and the team wasn't happy with its progress, eventually scrapping the game entirely. One of the team at Insomniac pitched the idea of a reptilian alien that goes from planet to planet gathering gadgets and weapons. Various concept art was produced, with many of the designs for the duo differing greatly from the ones we all know today. When pitching the game to Sony, it didn't have an engine and therefore faked one, which thankfully didn't affect their proposal, as Sony loved the idea. Ratchet and Clank was a great start to the series, featuring likeable characters, a light-hearted story with plenty of comedic moments. The story has you play as Ratchet, who stumbles upon his companion Clank early in the game as you try to take down Captain Drek, stopping his plans of deplanetization. Ratchet and Clank would release in November of 2002 to critical acclaim, receiving a score of 88% overall on Metacritic. Sony greenlighted a sequel after just 5 months into development of Ratchet and Clank and would release just 1 year after in 2003 under the name Ratchet and Clank Going Commando. This name would be changed in Europe to Locked and Loaded, which is believed to be because of issues with the sexual innuendo title. Ted Price decided the sequel was going to take the weapons and gadgets idea further, initially starting with the idea of upgrading the wrench through experience, which eventually extended to all weapons, something that became a tradition in all future games and a staple of the series. Another change they wanted to happen was the change of voice for Ratchet, feeling like he came off as too punk, and as a result changed the voice actor, who still voices Ratchet today. Ratchet and Clank released again to very positive reviews, giving it 90% overall. Simple additional features like strafing made a big difference to the gameplay. Another short development time, and in 2004 we got Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, or simply Ratchet and Clank 3 in Europe. Up Your Arsenal doesn't change too much, however further tweaks the gameplay to create an even better game than its predecessor. The game arguably succeeds the most by introducing one of its most iconic characters, Dr. Nefarious, who from this game on would be seen multiple times throughout the series and become the main villain. Up Your Arsenal also for the first time added online and local multiplayer, allowing you to play with friends against others online. Ratchet Deadlocked, known as Ratchet Gladiator in Europe, released in 2006 and was a strange departure. The game diverges away from what the series is known for, focusing less on adventure, gadgets, exploring planets and purely on the combat. The game also takes a decidedly more dark route comparatively to previous games, pitting Ratchet in a TV show where he must fight for his survival. As the name suggests, Clank is no longer with you during your journey in this game, although still does appear in the game. Despite changing up some of the fundamentals, scored 81% overall on Metacritic. In 2007 and 2008 we got 2 PSP titles, one that featured Clank as a main character for the first time, Secret Agent Clank, and the other a more traditional adventure, Ratchet and Clank Size Matters. Both were fairly well received, making good use of the PSP hardware. Secret Agent Clank and Ratchet and Clank Size Matters were eventually ported to the PS2, although to harsher critical reception. In 2007 we saw the start of the Ratchet and Clank future games, although the future wording was missing in the EU releases due to translation issues. Following on the story from the previous games, this time Ratchet tries to learn his race's origins and what happened to them, introducing a new villain, Tachyon. Gameplay wise, Tools of Destruction doesn't try to reinvent the series, however at the time it provided a fantastic looking game that still holds up today. A massive step up from the last game using the Resistance Fall of Man engine and the first for the series on the PS3. Quest for Booty was a short digital-only title that came out in late 2008. The game was very similar to Tools of Destruction, however being a smaller game you are much more limited, with less choices in terms of travel, no armor upgrades and being automatically given the majority of the weapons from Tools of Destruction. The game succeeds most in tying together the story between the previous game and the next on the list. Ratchet and Clank Future, A Crack in Time is the last game in the Future series and one of the best Ratchet games to date. Introducing a new character, a Lombax like Ratchet, we finally get a conclusion to the origins and history of his race and what happened to them. Gameplay wise, A Crack in Time is most complete and well designed to date, with the Clank time manipulation sections being genuinely challenging. The additions of hover boots were a great new feature and make you wonder how you played the games before or without them. The Ratchet and Clank series was at the height of quality at this point. 2011 and 2012 was a weird time for Ratchet and Clank. The team at Insomniac decided to experiment with the series with varied success, with many fans clamouring for the core games. In 2011 we saw All for One, a co-op game with up to 4 people locally or online, and in 2012 Full Frontal Assault or Q-Force in Europe, which was sort of a tower defense game. Neither game were bad, however deviated too much from what fans loved about the franchise and ultimately weren't that successful for this reason. In 2013, after 4 years of not receiving a traditional Ratchet and Clank game, we finally got Into the Nexus, a core game in the series that took place after A Crack in Time. Graphically, it didn't quite reach the height of A Crack in Time, nor was it as long, however it was still a pretty good entry in the series and one that we've been waiting for a number of years. Last year we got Ratchet and Clank, a remake of the first game, or what Sony are calling a reimagining. Ratchet and Clank updates the gameplay to what we expect from the latter releases, with full weapon upgrades and strafing that were absent in the original. The story remains largely the same, although with some fundamental changes in place, such as Dr. Nefarious being the main villain, who wasn't in the 2002 version at all. Graphically, this release is the best ever, a Pixar movie in motion, especially if played on a Pro with a 4K TV. That's it for today's video. Let me know what your favourite game in the series is and why. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave me a like and sub, which would help me out a lot. Be sure to click the thumbnail on the left to watch the last episode of Gaming Origins, or the thumbnail on the right for my last video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.